Hello friends, myself Ghanshyam Girnar from R.C. Patel Institute of Pharmacy, Shirpur. Today we are going to discuss on the topic antidotes. In this topic we will see the different parts. So after completion of this lecture, student will able to introduce and define antidotes. Student will able to classify antidotes and to explain mechanism of cyanide poisoning and action of different antidotes used to treat the cyanide poisoning. Now we will see in detail the chapter that is antidote. First we will start with the definition. So antidote is any substance which counteracts the effect of poison. Simply we can say that antidote is any drug or inorganic compound which is used to treat the poisoning condition. Another definition you can see, antidote is any substance or compound which is used in treatment of the poisoning to stop the poisoning. The substance or drug which we can use, that material substance or drug can be known as an antidote. Now next, that is the classification of antidotes. Antidotes are classified mainly in three different types. First is physiological antidote, second chemical antidote, and third one that is the mechanical antidote. In case of first, that is physiological antidote, these are the compounds or antidotes. They are not directly reacting with the cyanide, so or you can say not directly reacting with any poison. It produces the another effect, and so that they reduce the effect of the poisoning. So that type of antidotes can be called as physiological antidote. Example is sodium nitrate. Second type of antidote, that is the chemical antidote. It is somewhat opposite to the physiological. In case of physiological, just we have discussed that antidotes are not reacting with the poison, but in this chemical antidote, these are directly reacting with the poison, and so it changes the chemical structure of that poison, so that poisonous or toxic compound can be converted into the non-toxic compound. So that type of antidote can be called as the chemical antidote. Example is sodium thiosulfate. And third, that is the mechanical antidote. These are the antidotes which prevents the absorption of poison by adsorbing on it. Example is the activated charcoal. Physiological as well as chemical antidote we will discuss in detail again in the mechanism or of cyanide poisoning also. Okay, so next we will see what happen in case of the cyanide poisoning, or how cyanide poisoning happens. It is known as a cyanide poisoning mechanism. So generally cyanide enters in our body accidentally or intentionally. When that cyanide enters in our body, the cyanide ion have high affinity for the ferric ions which are present in our body. So after entering in our body, that cyanide ions readily reacts with this ferric ions or try to combine with this ferric ions, and these ferric ions are again responsible or useful for one enzyme that is known as a cytochrome oxidase enzyme. This cytochrome oxidase enzyme is very useful or responsible for conduction of this ETC, that is called as electron transport chain. Electron transport chain is present in cell and which is useful for the cellular respiration. So in short, you can say that ferric ions are responsible for the cytochrome oxidase enzyme, and cytochrome oxidase enzyme is responsible for the proper functioning of electron transport chain. Now what happens when this cyanide enters in body? As we now know that cyanide reacts with the ferric ion, so that this cyanide poison, by combining with this ferric ion of that cytochrome oxidase enzyme, it stops the ultimately ETC, that is electron transport chain. Or after the breaking of this ETC, that is electron transport chain, there is a stop of cellular respiration. So if that cellular respiration gets stopped, ultimately that death of that cell happens, and after the, if it is remain untreated for some time, death of that patient may also lead. So this is the simple mechanism of cyanide poisoning. Simply in short, if anyone asks what is the mechanism of cyanide poisoning, so you can say here cyanide ion first combine with the ferric ions in our body. That ferric ions are responsible for the cytochrome oxidase enzyme as well as, and this cytochrome oxidase enzyme is useful for the electron transport chain. So after combination of this ferric ion with this cyanide ion, cytochrome oxidase enables an electron transport chain gets stopped, and so that there is a death of that patient may happen if it is remain untreated for some time. So now what to do after the cyanide poisoning? So now, as we all know, in case of cyanide poisoning, the drugs which are used to treat this condition or poisoning condition, that drug is called as antidote. So same in case of cyanide poisoning also we use the antidote. There are two different antidotes. First this the sodium nitrate and second one is the sodium thiosulfate. Both are used to treat this cyanide poisoning condition. Now we will see the treatment of cyanide poisoning, or you can say that is what is the role of antidote like sodium nitrate and sodium thiosulfate in case of the cyanide poisoning. So after the poisoning, means cyanide poisoning, firstly the injection of sodium nitrate is given. Just we have discussed this sodium nitrate in case of that physiological antidote. So as we all know now, physiological antidotes are nothing but which produce the another effect, means they are not directly reacting with the poison. So now we will see how it acts. So in case of cyanide poisoning, first there is the injection of sodium nitrate is given to the patient, and after giving this injection, this sodium nitrate causes oxidation of the ferrous ion which are present in the hemoglobin. So oxidation of that ferrous ions, so ferrous converted into the ferric ions and hemoglobin converts into the methemoglobin. So this converted methemoglobin reacts with the serum cyanide, that cyanide which is present in our body. That cyanide now reacts with this methemoglobin, and that means the cyanide reacts with this methemoglobin and it produces a new compound that is called as the cyanomethemoglobin. So the ions of cyanide which are not entered in our body, that reacts with this methemoglobin and it produces the cyanomethemoglobin. And so that this mechanism protects our essential enzyme, that is the cytochrome oxidase enzyme. That enzyme get protected because the cyanide ions now reacts with the methemoglobin, and so that this enzyme get protected, and ultimately the electron transport chain continues or starts as per its normal function, and so that cellular respiration get start. Okay, so this is the first injection of antidote, that is sodium nitrate. So he can say that here means this sodium nitrate is not directly reacting with this poison, that is cyanide poisoning. Sodium nitrate first converts hemoglobin into the methemoglobin, means ferrous ion converts into the ferric ion. So there is no direct contact of this sodium nitrate with the poison, so that it is called as the physiological antidote. Within a 5 minutes after this injection, okay, after the 5 minutes of this sodium nitrate injection, again another injection of sodium thiosulfate. This is the second antidote. A slow intravenous infusion of the sodium thiosulfate is given. Sodium thiosulfate also we have discussed in a chemical antidote. As we all know, the chemical antidotes are nothing but which directly reacts with the poison and changes that poison into the, means changes that toxic compound into the non-toxic compound. So simple, this sodium thiosulfate when it is given in our body, in that the thiosulfate ions reacts with the cyanide ion which are present in our body in the presence of enzyme, that is the rhodonase enzyme, and because of this presence of enzyme and this sodium thiosulfate, this toxic cyanide compound, it's convert into the non-toxic thiocyanate compound or thiocyanate ions, and after the this formation of this thiocyanate ions, they can be excreted or flush out from our body through the urine. So here we can say that the toxic nature of cyanide is converted into the non-toxic thiocyanate nature, and this is because of the sodium thiosulfate, because sodium thiosulfate directly reacted and changed the chemical property, chemical nature of that poison. So that's why it is called as the chemical antidote. So these are the two different antidotes which are given to treat this cyanide poisoning condition. So in short, if anyone asks what is the mechanism or what is the cyanide poisoning as well as what is the treatment of the cyanide poisoning, so we can write in short one single two different reaction. From that you can memorize this all treatment of the cyanide poisoning. In first reaction you can say that the sodium nitrate, it's a physiological antidote. When it is given, the hemoglobin converts into the methemoglobin, means generally means ferrous ion converts or oxidize into the ferric ion, and so that this methemoglobin again forms cyanomethemoglobin and it stops the cyanide poisoning. And within 5 minutes again second antidote, that is sodium thiosulfate, is given. This sodium thiosulfate reacts with this cyanide ion, which is toxic in nature. This cyanide ion converts into the thiocyanate ion, which are non-toxic in nature. So we can memorize by using these two reaction the treatment of the cyanide poisoning. So this is all about definition as well as the classification, and last one, that is the mechanism of cyanide poisoning and treatment of the cyanide poisoning. So this is all about the cyanide poisoning. Thank you very much.